Coming to you live from the White Picket Studios in Houston, Texas, this is the Realty Ruckus. If you are in any way, shape, or form involved in the real estate industry, this is the show for you. And now, your host, Alan Hernandez.
Good morning, Houston, Texas, real estate investors, landlords, realtors, loan officers. Thank you guys for watching us today here at the Realty Ruckus. We're excited today because we have a phenomenal show planned out. This weekend is back to school weekend. For those of you guys that don't have kids and you wonder why all the malls are packed and everyone's out there shopping thinking that they're getting these amazing bargains. Well, the reason why that's happening is because everything is tax-free. Isn't that what's happening this weekend?
Yeah, that's right. It's tax-free weekend.
So you can go out and you can buy tax-free stuff, and you're thinking, oh man, I'm going to save, a whole, 8%. And really, I think the stores actually mark things up. I don't really think there's actually any savings, in my opinion.
No, of course there's not any savings.
Unless you're going to go stand in line for like 2 hours and yeah, fine, you save 8%, big deal. Last night I went to my kids' first day of like an introductory for new parents in their new school, and man, it's so cool to see like how everything comes together. Like you go through the whole summer and your kids get a chance to relax and whatnot, but like towards the end, like right around August, they're ready to go back. They're ready to go and like spend time with their friends and do other stuff than just being at home and whatnot. So I'm excited for them, man. And if you wonder why real estate slows down in August, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it's got to be that.
I think parents are focused on getting their kids back to school. They're out buying school supplies for those people that have to do that. You're getting everything set up. Right now we're going through like even like a little phase where we're having to show them how to get back into like a normal sleeping pattern. Because baby, you remember this growing up? Like during the summer,
I do remember, yeah.
During the summer, we'd be up to like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And our parents would yell at us. And we now I have to go through the same thing. Now it's like for us it's different. Now it's like 10:30 and Eliana is still running around the house and stuff. And we're like, go back to sleep, go to bed. And I feel like it's like deja vu. It's like it was just not. It wasn't long ago where we were in that situation, but now we're like setting things up at 7:30 to get them into bed and whatnot, and get them back into the rhythm of going to bed at 8:30, just so that next week, can you believe it? They're starting school. So school starts for us on Thursday of next week. So man, it's around the corner, and we're excited because that means my wife will come out here and help out a whole lot more. So I'll have an extra pair of hands out here to help us push the work along. But yeah, I mean, for real estate, what does that mean? And unfortunately for a lot of real estate agents, I think it means that they take the foot off the pedal, because everyone knows this is kind of a slow month. In my opinion, this is kind of the month where you really have to push harder, because if you take your foot off the pedal, you kind of set yourself up for a slower quarter, and knowing that you have this little bit of a slowdown, I think it's important for you to kind of fight that in up front. Even with like some of the stuff that we have listed, it's if you have something listed and it hasn't moved. I sent an email yesterday to all my clients saying, hey, we have this or this or this coming up. This is what's happening in the market. This is what's happening with your property. This might be a good time to consider a price reduction. And the idea behind that is let's get everything moved while we can, while there's still at least a couple weeks. Public school actually doesn't start for another 2 weeks. Private school starts early. Public school starts a little bit later, so you do have some time, and people are still out there looking for that one house they can buy before they settle down and can't do anything else for at least a couple months. So there's still plenty of time to go out there and get your work done, man. Not to mention, now taxes are coming up, where people on the selling side, people are now thinking, okay, great, we're going to have to pay a whole new year of taxes or whatnot. So if you're out there listing houses or buying houses, this is a good time to create that marketing campaign and start sending it out and making sure that you remind people that, hey, pretty soon they're gonna have to pay another year of taxes, and it might be a good time to start thinking about selling. So I don't know. What do you think? I mean, is is the slowdown something that affects every agent or just the agents that let it happen?
Well, I want to say in general, there is a slowdown in real estate.
Yeah.
But if you let it affect your business, it's going to have a much bigger effect.
Yeah.
If you fight through it, like you said, then you're going to have a much easier time getting through that.
You know, I kind of learned that lesson the hard way. Back when I started in the business, I used to take every December off, like literally just take it completely off.
I remember that.
You remember that? And then I'd come back in January and be like, oh my God, I have no business for January.
Well, then you got to take a month to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah, exactly. So I learned early on, you know, the day that you clock out in the industry, you have so much time to get, you know, back into it. But when we get back, we're going to talk about other things that are happening in the world. Not only are the Chinese buying properties in Houston, what that means for you guys. We're going to talk about other awesome stuff like unpermitted houses and what happens when an inspector breaks something in the house. So we have some stuff to talk about. We'll be right back.
The Realty Ruckus is going to be broadcasting live August 9th at White Picket Realty's Happy Hour. This is an event for you guys to RSVP for and really get ready to ramp up your business. David, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
That's right, Alan. Come grab a cold one and beat the heat with Team WPR. We'll have over 200 plus real estate industry professionals attending. That's private money lenders, wholesalers, realtors, you name it. We'll be at the St. Arnold Brewery on August 9th from 6 to 9 p.m. You can RSVP at whitepickethappyhour.eventbrite.com. Again, that RSVP link is whitepickethappyhour.eventbrite.com. Hey Houston investors, do you have a couple deals under your belt, but now you're looking to scale in a more structured way? If so, then the House Flipping Network provides guidance to those looking to grow their real estate business. It's also a great way to mastermind with our experts and groups of like-minded investors just like yourself. If you're interested in more information, reach out to me, David at houseflippingnetwork.com. That's David at houseflippingnetwork.com.
Hey realtors, I have a challenge for you. Walk into your broker's office and ask him to show you how to do a net listing, a wholesale investment transaction, or a subject to. I'm Alan Hernandez, broker of White Picket Realty, and my team and I have been doing these type of transactions for years. We can show you how to do the same and turn small deals into big checks. If you're interested in learning more, please contact join at teamwpr.com. JOIN at teamwpr.com.
Hey everyone, this is David over at White Picket Realty, and I wanted to tell you about my friends over at Plans Express who can save you the headache of running your own permits. These guys are committed to offering a one-stop solution for all your plan and permit needs. They're proudly serving their friends and neighbors in the Houston surrounding areas, and they offer great service at an exceptional value. With dedicated professionals ready to serve, contact them today at 832-675-6217.
And we are back on the Realty Ruckus. David, how's the weather look for us this weekend?
It's going to be pretty hot, high 90s, heat indices in the hundreds, so stay cool out there. It looks like we do have some chances of rain today and on Sunday, but Saturday's going to be pretty bright and sunny.
That's awesome, man. We have a phenomenal weekend planned out. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening this weekend, including a couple car shows or a couple car meets that I like to go to. Some golf playing. You guys are doing some golf playing, BB?
No, I'm not playing in that.
Playing?
There's some other tournaments going on though.
Yeah, and then we have a recap of all of the other stuff that's happening around town for you guys. So we'll give that to you guys towards the end. But before we get into any of that stuff, I want to talk about something that's happening recently in you know our business and maybe talk a little bit about the background on why we think it's happening. First off, I don't know if you guys know this, but I've been buying a lot of houses and marketing a lot to Sharpstown. Why? You know, because one, I think the area is phenomenal and it's going to appreciate like crazy. But two, because you know our office is here. We are basically living here, you know, most of the time. So it makes sense for us to invest in the area. But funny enough, the last 2 or 3 transactions that we've done have literally gone to Chinese families. And almost all of the offers that we're getting are cash, and it's someone who is recently immigrated to the country. And it's kind of funny because I knew that this was going to happen. So even like on the last property that I bought, we purposely bought it with it facing north because I've talked to some of them, and that's one of the things that they want, and they wanted to see some red accents, so we put that into our staging. So we did a couple little things to make sure that it was more favorable for them, and we got the results that we wanted. We started doing some research, and then BB, you found an article that was really interesting that talked a little bit about why the Chinese are buying, not only just in Houston but in the United States, period.
Well, yeah, it's an article about why the Chinese are buying in the U.S., why they want to invest their money here. And it's a little bit alarming because it's not an investment. They're not doing it to invest here. For them, investing here is the equivalent of putting their money in a really safe bank. Yeah. Because in China, so in 1949, the Communist Party banned land ownership and they banned property ownership. Now they went back and they said, okay, you can own property again. And so people, they have an 80% property ownership rate. So compare that with the U.S. The U.S. is only 64%.
That's what I was going to say. Don't they have the highest ownership rate in like the whole world?
Well, I don't know if it's the highest in the world, but it's high. It's 80%. But the problem is they don't actually own the land that they live on. So what they do is when you buy a property over there, you own the property itself, but the land is actually owned by the government still. Huh. And you get a land lease on it. So they give you like a 20-year land lease. Well, 20 years ago, when everyone signed these land leases, they were really cheap. They were inexpensive. Yeah. Now, when everyone's going back to renew their land lease, the government is saying, well, no, you can't renew it for that same price. This is your new land lease renewal price. So basically, they're taking away the ability of them to own the land, and now they're charging them these ridiculous rates. So what the Chinese are trying to do is find any way possible to get their cash and their money out of the country. And they feel like the United States is really big on protecting land ownership.
Right.
And to them,
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, the U.S. is really big on that. And so they want to get their money into a country where their land ownership is going to be protected. So the implications of that, and the reason it's alarming, is because as investors here domestically, we invest based off of a return.
Yes.
Like we expect to get a return.
Right.
They're not investing with that same mentality. They're investing instead with the mentality of, I need to make sure that my money is safe.
Right.
So they don't care if they get a return. Heck, they don't even care if they take a small loss. To them, that's better
Than losing it all.
than potentially losing it all to the government.
That makes sense. Because what happens when you can't renew your land lease in China?
That's it. You're done.
You lose the opportunity to live there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the structure's taken down, or they just...
Well, you still can own the property, but then they go into short-term leases, which are even more dangerous than the long-term land lease, because the short-term one, every year you have to renew it now. There may be some crazy fees with that. Yeah. And on top of it, 1 year they can just decide, we're not renewing anymore.
That's true. It's a lease.
Or you don't know what the price is going to be from year to year. You know?
Exactly. I mean, it's so volatile. And so they're coming over here, and what's crazy to me is, so there's a cap. They're only supposed to send $50,000 at a time. And what makes it really alarming is that they're going out and they're buying like shipping containers full of like junk merchandise, $200,000-$300,000. They ship it to the U.S. They'll pay the import fees, everything else, and then they have a buddy here liquidate all those assets in order to get the cash back, and then they invest that cash through their buddy that's already living here. Yeah. So they're avoiding the Chinese government and the regulations that they have on only sending $50,000 per year. And the government in China is now saying, well, we're going to put in a task enforcement agency to go out there and try to prevent that. But, I mean...
People are going to find a way.
Exactly.
People are going to find a way.
There's a way for sure.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because you start looking into what's happening, like, for example, even like in Chinatown. I mean, have you seen the redevelopment that's happening in that area recently? I mean, if you just drive down the street, almost every building is being renovated. They're getting ready to tear. There's like this really crappy apartment complex there that's just been recently resold.
Yeah. Actually,
to an investment group. It's getting ready to get torn down, and offices are going to be built. I mean, what they're doing in the area is phenomenal, and I mean, to me, it's no wonder because I'm invested in the area. But realizing what's happening and why it's happening. I mean, like you said, it's alarming to see why. I mean, look, perfect example is this house we just listed. We put it up for sale. We put it up for sale as is, all right? And we put it up for sale for like in the mid 200s, 220s. Without it even being listed, we have an offer from a Chinese family at 235, so 10 grand over cash.
Wow.
Closing in like 10 days, sight unseen, which means they didn't even get it. They didn't even go into the house.
Wow.
They didn't even care about going.
Did they even
into
get a home inspector?
They didn't even get a home inspector.
That's
man.
crazy.
Wow.
You know, and they were represented by an agent.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm
But see, that goes back to the same point. They just don't care.
It didn't matter.
They
to them.
don't care
No.
what they're really putting their money into as long as they feel like their money's going to be safe. And they look at a neighborhood like Sharpstown and say, oh, this thing's been appreciating for a while now. It's been on the bubble for a long time
Yeah.
of whether it's going to turn one way or the other.
Yeah.
And for them, I'd rather put that money there than potentially lose it.
Yeah. Imagine that, man. So they threw $235,000 at it, and come to find out, this same family owns like 6 houses in that same street.
Wow.
So it's incredible, man. Like what, and actually, I mean, they're raising their own property values. They're, you know, by investing in the area and paying that kind of money for a house, they're essentially raising their own values.
Yeah.
You know, on their own properties. So it was kind of cool to see that. And when you brought that article up and we started looking into it, man, it gave me a little bit more insight as to why when we list a house in this area, we get those offers.
Yeah.
You know,
It makes sense now.
And really, you know, if you're in the investment world and if you're in the listing world, if you're a listing agent and you have something that you know is favorable to a Chinese family, you know that you can, you know, price it accordingly. You know, that's like having insider secrets, you know, knowing that a house faces north will get you potentially an offer from a Chinese family.
Well, and knowing that their investment criteria is really, really low,
Yeah.
then you know that you can overprice a little bit.
Yep.
And you can still get a cash offer and sell it. The problem is, at what point does that start to butt heads with what we do? And that's what we need to look out in the
It
future.
butts heads a lot because I would have loved to buy that property, but there's no way I could compete with them.
Yeah.
There's no chance for me to compete with those
It's
guys.
too difficult.
So anyway, when we get back, we want to talk about something else that we ran into. We ran into a 1920s unpermitted house.
Wow.
1920s unpermitted renovated house, all right? And what the difficulties were behind selling it and pushing that sale through, which actually didn't go through at all. We're going to tell you why.
We'll be back.
The Realty Ruckus is going to be broadcasting live August 9th at White Picket Realty's Happy Hour. This is an event for you guys to RSVP for and really get ready to ramp up your business. David, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
That's right, Alan. Come grab a cold one and beat the heat with Team WPR. We'll have over 200 plus real estate industry professionals attending. That's private money lenders, wholesalers, realtors, you name it. We'll be at the St. Arnold Brewery on August 9th from 6 to 9 p.m. You can RSVP at whitepickethappyhour.eventbrite.com. Again, that RSVP link is whitepickethappyhour.eventbrite.com. Hey everyone, this is David over at White Picket Realty, and I wanted to tell you about my friends over at Plans Express who can save you the headache of running your own permits. These guys are committed to offering a one-stop solution for all your plan and permit needs. They're proudly serving their friends and neighbors in the Houston surrounding areas, and they offer great service at an exceptional value. With dedicated professionals ready to serve, contact them today at 832-675-6217.
Hey realtors, I have a challenge for you. Walk into your broker's office and ask him to show you how to do a net listing, a wholesale investment transaction, or a subject to. I'm Alan Hernandez, broker of White Picket Realty, and my team and I have been doing these type of transactions for years. We can show you how to do the same and turn small deals into big checks. If you're interested in learning more, please contact join at teamwpr.com. JOIN at teamwpr.com.
Hey Houston investors, do you have a couple deals under your belt, but now you're looking to scale in a more structured way? If so, then the House Flipping Network provides guidance to those looking to grow their real estate business. It's also a great way to mastermind with our experts and groups of like-minded investors just like yourself. If you're interested in more information, reach out to me, David at houseflippingnetwork.com. That's David at houseflippingnetwork.com.
And we are back on the Realty Ruckus. And we're going to be talking today. We got a little bit of a story. It actually happened with one of our agents.
Yeah.
And Alan wants to tell you a little bit about it.
Yeah, I actually want to share this story with you guys. Unfortunately, our agent Manuel Mata is in here, and we were hoping that he would tell it himself, but I'm gonna try to tell it for him and give you guys an idea on what's happening out there with investors who are still trying to renovate properties without pulling the right permits.
I can't believe that still happens.
You know, it's kind of funny because when we first started investing in real estate, and this was nearly 10 years ago, we were like, all right, we don't really want to mess with the city. So, you know, we'll just try to do this under the, you know, put up blinds on the windows and keep anyone from seeing that we're doing anything here. And eventually, you know, we did.
Do you
we got
remember
away.
the days of telling the contractor to close the garage door?
Yes.
And we'd fill the garage
Yes.
with just trash
I
up to the
remember that.
ceiling just to prevent from putting a dumpster, because as soon as you put a dumpster, that was like your red flag to the city. Hey, I'm doing an unpermitted project here. And so we'd be like, no, look, you park your truck, you back into the driveway, you leave the garage door closed, and we don't touch the outside until we're ready. And then everything, we got to do it on the weekend.
Yes.
We got to do it on the weekend.
All of the project got done on the weekend.
Not knowing inspectors work every weekend.
I mean, to save, you know, a couple $100 at the end of the day, because if you do it up front, it's not horribly expensive to get your permitting done.
It's really not.
And really, it saves you a whole lot of headaches. But you go into this business thinking that that's the right way to do it, that you don't want to mess with the city, that you don't want to deal with them.
Well, and I think a big part of it is that everyone talks about how crappy it is to go down to the city building and sit there, and it takes hours. And so for a brand new investor, they hear that, and the first thing that goes into their head is, wow, that sounds really complicated. I don't want to deal with it.
You know what else? And I remember this from when I first started. A lot of the contractors I was dealing with would tell me, okay, we'll do the job, but I don't want to pull permits. So,
I do remember that.
So a lot of the contractors themselves don't want to go down to the city and pull a permit, and they either don't know how or they're lazy about it.
Yeah.
You know, so you're kind of stuck. You're in that situation where, like, all right, well, fine, I really don't want to go through that process, or I don't know how to do it. And at the same time, maybe my contractor may not know or want to do it. So it puts you in a situation where, okay, you'll end up doing something unpermitted. But here's the deal. If you do carpet and paint, you're probably okay, right?
Yeah, you don't need a permit.
You don't need a permit for
Yeah.
that. But this guy, so this story is about a house built in 1920.
It's
all
in
right?
the East End, right?
It's in the East
Yeah.
End. It's a 1920s bungalow house, cute little house. The remodel looks good, but they added on. They added on square footage. And of course, when you're doing a 1920s home, usually when you're permitting the property, right, you have to pull pretty much everything: an electrical permit, a plumbing permit, a framing permit. If you're going to add on, you actually have to submit plans. There's a whole process to doing things right. And the city, I mean, I get it. It's kind of annoying dealing with them, but at the same time, they really are preventing something bad from happening.
Absolutely.
You know?
I couldn't agree with that more. I know that, and this is something for anyone listening that may be thinking of hiring a contractor. The second that you tell a contractor that there's going to be no city inspection, they do things differently.
That's right.
Yep.
They use the cheaper fittings. They don't use the right glue. They do anything they can to save costs, and it's things that you don't see because you're not a trained inspector.
Kind of, you know, the opposite to that is when you tell them, we're going to do this the right way, and I'm going to pull permits, or you're going to pull permits.
Yeah.
And everything that you do must pass a city inspection. Don't they do it differently?
Oh yeah, I mean, because they know that they're going to have trained eyes on it.
And when you say I'm not going to pay you your final bid or your final draw until you pass the city inspection, don't things get done right that way?
Oh yeah, all of a sudden they're there
It's
busting
funny
their
how
tail.
money motivates.
It's
that way.
funny how that works, man. It's funny how that works. But we've had to learn that lesson. You know, in some cases, in some ways, it's been the hard way. But I hope that, you know, through what we've learned, that you guys can do the same. Because here's what happened with this house. This guy, this investor, goes out, renovates this house. I mean, I'm sure he spent a ton of money on it. Nowadays, to renovate a 1920s home, and you do it top notch, you're not spending less than $100,000. All right, and anyone that tells
And
you
that's even on the low end.
yeah, that's the low end. And if
Yeah.
anyone that tells you otherwise is lying, and they've never done one before.
Yeah.
You know, because we've been there, we've done it, and we know what it takes to do one of those old bungalows. And so I'm sure this guy spent at least that. Let's just say he went out and maybe saved a little money and banged the hammer himself, which by the way, if you're listening, you should never do. Don't ever be the investor that bangs the hammer. Okay? Never. Don't be like us and try to be your own landscaper, which we did on our first investment, and we had to learn that the hard way. But all right, so this guy renovates this house, puts it on the market. Our agent, Manuel, has a buyer for that house, right? So he goes out there, puts a contract on the house. The contract gets accepted. Everything goes.
Well, he gets a seller's disclosure. There's a line on the seller's disclosure that says, has any work been done on the property that required permits without permits?
And it wasn't disclosed.
They checked no on it.
Right.
And so then what happens? The city inspector, the home inspector goes out there and just finds a laundry list of things that are wrong with this place.
Right.
And I remember Manuel comes into my office and he says, hey, you guys know about bungalows. Do you mind going through this inspection report with me? I don't know if the inspector's just being a hard ass or if these are legitimate things. And he comes in and like immediately I'm like, no, these are pretty big items.
Yeah.
We need to go through this whole report.
A lot of serious issues are coming up. But then on top of that, let's just say even if you were able to work through those problems, let's just say, look, you send this list to the sellers and you say, hey, I need you to fix everything on this list in order to be able to close. And they say, fine. Mm-hmm. The buyers aren't able to get insurance on that property, right? They're not able to go out and get insurance without paying literally an arm and a leg. So usually an insurance policy on that house would have run them about maybe $1,200. They were getting quotes upwards of $4,000, $4,500 because the insurance company was saying, well, wait, it shows it's this size. Now you're telling me it's this size. What happened? Oh, well, there was an addition. Well, why isn't there any record of any addition happening? What got done? Did you guys replace the electrical? Did you guys replace the plumbing? So when you're getting insurance, they want to know that you did some of that stuff. And if you have no proof of it, if you haven't pulled permits, if you have no way to prove that stuff has been done right, and then on top of that, you kind of get this report that says you have all these other problems. Of course, they're not disclosing that, but still, that there are issues with this house. It makes sense for the insurance to charge you, 4 times more than normal because it's a huge risk.
It is. It really is. And what's funny is, as we were going through the report, because they didn't pull an electrical permit, one of the electricians, I guess, decided it would be a smart idea to run an electrical line through the rafters on the roof. I mean, that's just asking for a roofing nail to be shot through that electrical cable. I said, you never would do something like that. And that's what I'm talking about. That was easy and convenient for him. Yeah. And he knew that he wasn't going to have to deal with the city inspector. Yeah. So he ran it up there. If he knew the city inspector was coming out, I guarantee you that electrician wouldn't have done that.
Wouldn't have ever done that.
Exactly.
So lesson learned here. What happened is the buyer obviously can't fix the problem, and it's not just a problem that gets fixed with money. The only way to potentially fix the issue is to require the seller to go back to the city, submit plans, and ask for inspections to be done, right?
Which is a pain because it depends on which inspector you get. So there's 2 scenarios that can happen. You go pull the plans, you get a really nice inspector who shows up, checks everything and says, look, I'm not going to require you to rip anything out. I see that you're almost done here, and if you fix this, this, and this, I'll final your permit. But if you get one of the guys down at the city that's
having a bad day or something?
Yeah, that's having a bad day and takes his job real serious. I mean, I've heard horror stories of people having to go in and rip out all the sheetrock.
Yeah.
Just because they're like, hey, I need to be able to see everything behind the walls.
That's not unheard of. And if you think about it, in a 1920s bungalow, it probably makes sense to rip the sheetrock out. So you can see what kind of wiring was done, what the plumbing looks like. I mean, there are plumbers out there that literally started, doing plumbing yesterday, thinking that they're going to replumb a house, and before you know it, I know because I've seen it, where you walk into a house and it smells like a giant toilet, and it's because they didn't actually run the line all the way through the roof. They just left it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's all sorts of issues that can come up, and it would make sense for a city inspector to go into a house like this and say, look, we got to tear some sheetrock out, and I got to see everything that's been done so I can get you guys.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would say that the big thing is what you said, Jabron. It's almost finished. I mean, if you submit the inspection process at the beginning, they don't have to worry about what's hidden behind the wall, so to speak. So where the house that's completed and then inspections pulled, 9 out of 10 times you're gonna be pulling out the walls. You're gonna be knocking things down because nobody wants to sign off on it.
Yep. It's too much liability. I mean, the inspector that signs off on it from the city, let's say something happens at that house and it catches fire. Well, when they do the arson report, they actually go back and check, hey, if they find it was electrical, well, who passed the electrical?
Yeah.
And they'll see that city inspector did, and they'll say, whoa, there was a huge mess up there.
Yeah.
Guess what? That guy gets canned.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want that liability on him.
And that's the thing about pulling those permits is that you have to pull the permits with licensed people. And so in a case like that, they'll go back and say, hey, you were a licensed electrician and you did this the wrong way. You know, what's going on?
Yeah.
You know, if this deal was to close, think about what are the legal implications of it? What if someone died there? You know, so first off, the seller didn't disclose it.
Right.
You know.
Well, the seller didn't disclose it, so obviously they're liable. You know, penally.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They're liable financially. They're liable, but they can also be criminally and penally liable. To where if something was done and they were grossly negligent, I mean, there could be criminal charges filed because if somebody created the house, they represented the house as being inhabitantly correct, and then they turned out and the house got caught fire. I mean, it could create disastrous consequences.
Yeah. I mean, if someone dies in that house because this investor decided he was going to save a couple $100, right? And he didn't want to disclose that he did things the wrong way.
Yeah.
I would say he's being negligent.
Right.
You know, I would say that he's in a scenario where he stands to lose his butt in a lawsuit.
So we know we shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do a rehab without permits. Now, inevitably, one of our listeners is going to go out there and do it anyways.
Yep.
Because they just don't want to spend the money and they don't believe everything that we're
What
saying.
does permitting a house cost nowadays?
It depends on the scope of the
A
rehab.
1920s bungalow, you're doing a $100,000 rehab. What
I mean,
are they going to run
you may be all in less than $1,000 all in permitting.
Is that too much for people to spend? You know, is it such a big deal to spend $1,000? By the way, if you're spending $1,000 on permitting, you're not going to the permitting office yourself. You're hiring someone to go out there.
Well, I'm talking about $1,000 just for the permit.
Okay.
So the
but
permit
you
itself.
can pay someone to go out there.
Oh yeah, I mean you're gonna have to draw up plans and everything. I mean you may spend total $4,000, including drawing the plans, going to the architect, getting it stamped, and having somebody run the permit for you. Not you running it.
That's
yourself.
what I'm saying. It's not you standing in line.
Yeah, but it prevents you from making massive mistakes like those people made, because right now they have a house that they've invested a ton of money into, and really they have an unsellable product, completely unsellable.
It's unsellable and unmarketable because no matter who buys it, they're going to run into the same scenario. No matter who puts a contract on it, they're going to run into the same scenario. Any buyer with a decent realtor, the realtor is going to advise them to obviously have it inspected, and it's going to come up. And when they go get insurance, it's going to come up again. Hey,
Yeah.
Why is this house different than what it shows here? What happened? Why wasn't there any permits pulled? And that's going to continue to happen. So, okay, fine. You went out, you got yourself a phenomenal deal. Let's say this guy bought this house at, 50 cents on the dollar, and he spent $100,000 on it. Now he's got, $200,000 or $300,000 invested into it, and he thinks he's going to make $100,000. What's he really going to make? He's going to make zero.
Just lost a lot of money.
And actually, he's getting ready to lose a ton of money by saving those. What did you say? $4,000?
Yeah, $4,000.
Okay, so congratulations. You just went out and lost 100 for trying to save 4. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it makes no sense to do it. And that's what that's kind of the result of getting into this business without having a proper advisory board, a proper team, or a group of people that you can ask the right questions about.
Or listening to the Realty Ruckus.
Or listening to Realty Ruckus for sure.
So when we get back, I want to find out the legal ramifications for the people who do that inevitably.
Yeah.
And then we want to jump into conversations about contracts and other legal items.
Well, and what happens when a realtor tries to play attorney?
Yeah.
And that happens all the time.
That does happen all the time.
We'll talk about that when we get back.
The
Realty Ruckus is going to be broadcasting live August 9th at White Picket Realty's Happy Hour. This is an event for you guys to RSVP for and really get ready to ramp up your business. David, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
That's right, Alan. Come grab a cold one and beat the heat with Team WPR. We'll have over 200 plus real estate industry professionals attending. That's private money lenders, wholesalers, realtors, you name it. We'll be at the St. Arnold Brewery on August 9th from 6 to 9 p.m. You can RSVP at whitepickethappyhour.eventbrite.com. Again, that RSVP link is whitepickethappyhour.eventbrite.com. Hey everyone, this is David over at White Picket Realty, and I wanted to tell you about my friends over at Plans Express who can save you the headache of running your own permits. These guys are committed to offering a one-stop solution for all your plan and permit needs. They're proudly serving their friends and neighbors in the Houston surrounding areas, and they offer great service and an exceptional value. With dedicated professionals ready to serve, contact them today at 832-675-6217.
Hey realtors, I have a challenge for you. Walk into your broker's office and ask him to show you how to do a net listing, a wholesale investment transaction, or a subject to. I'm Alan Hernandez, broker of White Picket Realty, and my team and I have been doing these type of transactions for years. We can show you how to do the same and turn small deals into big checks. If you're interested in learning more, please contact join at teamwpr.com, JOIN at teamwpr.com.
Hey Houston investors, do you have a couple deals under your belt, but now you're looking to scale in a more structured way? If so, then the House Flipping Network provides guidance to those looking to grow their real estate business. It's also a great way to mastermind with our experts and groups of like-minded investors just like yourself. If you're interested in more information, reach out to me, David at houseflippingnetwork.com. That's David at houseflippingnetwork.com.
And we are back on the Realty Ruckus. We're talking about unpermitted houses and the consequences that you can run into by doing a property without the proper permits. And so, Ashley, I wanted to ask you, legally, what can we expect if I'm a buyer, and I'm the seller,
Right.
and I didn't do any permits, and the buyer still buys a property, but let's say a year down the road they have an issue with the AC system. And it turns out that it's producing mold because it wasn't installed correctly. Something along those lines. You know, things like that always happen. Mm-hmm. What legal consequences am I facing?
Well, one of these days you're going to have somebody knock on your doorstep and hand you some papers, and the paper's going to say you've been sued.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so what you could be held liable for is you could be held liable for the entire value of the entire house.
Okay.
It's considered deceptive trade practice. TD, Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act, which basically could make you liable for treble damages. So not only would you have to return the house or return the profit, but any consequential damages, if there is in fact mold, you may be looking at medical bills.
Yeah.
Wow. So it can be a really, really big deal.
And it's easy to win. It's an easy lawsuit to win because all the plaintiff has to prove is that, hey, you knew that property required disclosure or required permits. They weren't pulled. And because of that, there were damages to the house or it wouldn't have passed inspection. So essentially the buyer would go out and get an inspection and it would fail because permits weren't pulled. Mm-hmm. And that's the burden of proof right there. You just met it.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
you can always call the city and ask, hey, were permits pulled on this property?
That's exactly right.
And of course, they always keep a record and they tell you, no, permits have not been pulled. So if you have that and you can prove that in court, that's it.
Right. And what happens is sometimes the buyer will be notified by the city. One day they'll come home and then there'll be a nice little red label on their doorstep saying this house has not passed permits.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the properties, I know an investor who actually did one in the Westbury, Maryland area. This was probably a good 5 or 6 years ago, but they never finalized the permit. So they pulled the permits, but they never closed it.
Right.
And at that time, there was nothing really the city could do. I mean, all the utilities were on and everything. They actually a year later got a letter saying that their utilities were scheduled to be shut off.
That's what they do.
Because their temporary permits were expired.
Right.
And so the previous investor had to call in for the finals, get everything finalized, And when they came out, they said, "Whoa, you never called in for your frame inspection." And they made him rip out all the sheetrock around all the windows to prove that the windows were properly installed. And to me, the inspector did it just to spite the guy.
Sure.
Because he didn't need that. He could have said, "Let me look at one or two of them and I'll go off of that." No, he said, "I need all the sheetrock gone around all the windows. I need to make sure they're all installed correctly."
Yeah.
So I bet he learned a lesson.
Oh yeah. So the final verdict is just don't do it. Pull the proper permits.
On the buyer end, let's say you're the buyer, and let's talk about maybe even our buyer. You know, the buyer that our company was represented. Obviously, he's entitled to his earnest money.
Right.
Am I right?
He's entitled to everything.
What if he's out of option?
Well, it doesn't matter if he's out of option because the product that he bought wasn't a product that was alleged to be sold.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It doesn't mean anything. Contractual rights. It involves the contractual rights of the sale itself.
Yeah.
I mean, had I known that this house wouldn't comply with city ordinances, I would not have bought this property.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, that what the reasonable person would do, they call it reasonable person a standard. The reasonable person would not have bought that house if they would have known that permits were lacking.
Yeah.
Which, the final permits, that's where most people fall short on, is a lot of people will get the permits, but then once you're in the City of Houston's database, you're in their database. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to remember when you get the permits, finalize the permits.
So for example, with our buyer, the sellers do not want to release the earnest money. Is there something that our buyer can do to get their earnest money back?
See, this is where Trek, for some reason, changed their forms recently. It used to be to where if you wrongfully withheld the earnest money from the other side could sue you for treble damages. Well, in the new revisions, that's been changed to where now you can just sue for the earnest money itself. So by law, you can either sue for the earnest money as liquidated damages, or you can sue for law or equity or both. Where before, if you would sue for the earnest, if you wouldn't just take the earnest money, you could sue for treble the damages earnest money, but now it's just basically just normal breach of contract case. So you're essentially suing.
So what about like the money that the buyer spent on the inspection, thinking that the property had been permitted because of the seller's disclosure? Can they argue to get that money back?
That's very hard because you got to show, because inspection is considered part of the due diligence of a property. So a lot of times the inspection is done for the buyer's benefit, and I've seen cases where they have been able to get it, but for the most part, the courts won't allow those damages.
Okay. That's good. So final verdict, do everything with permits, do it correctly. And we'll jump off of that one. I feel like we're beating the nail.
No,
as
this is important stuff because you run into this scenario all the time, and I feel like there are realtors out there that flat out don't know what to do when they run into this.
Yeah.
You know, and the last thing you want to do is advise your client to close on a transaction like that. You know, and on the investment side, you want to close on every transaction. You want everybody to sell your houses. But if you're a realtor and you're representing a buyer, and you see that something's been done unpermitted, you're putting your buyer in a situation where they could potentially be in some issues later. You know, even
right.
Like you said, even potential health problems later if things weren't installed correctly. So
see, and this is not something the title report picks up either, because title companies, they don't examine the city ordinances. So if there are permit issues, it doesn't appear on title policy. So a lot of times these problems won't manifest itself for several years down the road.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen is that it's not a problem right now. It becomes a problem a year from now, or when their utilities get shut off, and now you have a really, really angry buyer.
Would you say that it would be a good practice to have for your realtor to help you pull the report from the city if you're buying a renovated house?
I would say it's a smart idea anytime you're buying a renovated house to go on a city's website. You can easily search for all the permits pulled by address. So it's not complicated. You don't need to know the project number.
How do we do that? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah.
Can we show our listeners how to do that?
Yeah. So if you just go Google and type in City of Houston permit search, and then you have to find the one that says search for permits sold, and then you search by address, and it'll show you all the permits that have been sold for that address.
Can we post a link to that down below?
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Guys, we'll
Awesome.
post a link to that. Share it with your friends and family. If you're a realtor listening, share it with your clients. Make sure that if you're selling a renovated house, that the permits have been pulled, that they've been closed on top of that, or
Yeah.
they're being,
Right.
and if they haven't been closed, that's the time for you to call the listing agent and say, hey, when are these going to be closed? And we need these closed before this property actually closes and funds.
And it's actually really easy to tell if it's been closed or not. If it's been closed, it won't say, it'll just show completed. But at the bottom, if it hasn't been closed, in big bold letters, it'll say final project inspection outstanding.
Yeah.
And that's just hey, this thing hasn't been finalized, you know?
Yeah, so that's good. Speaking of realtors and good practices, one of the things that I run into all the time as a broker, and even sometimes with my own agents that things that I have to yell about is when they decide that they're gonna play attorney. There's always something that comes up. There's like an issue with the house or something that needs to be finalized. For example, in this case, let's say permits need to be finalized. And what they start doing is they'll go into special provisions and they'll write this long, complicated paragraph on how things should and when and whatnot should be done. And then, of course, they have the seller and buyer initial it, and they're thinking, hey, they're doing their client a favor.
Right.
But are they doing themselves a favor?
They're doing everybody a favor because they're not licensed practice law, and those contracts are boilerplate for realtors. Unless you happen to be a realtor who's also an attorney for the state of Texas, just don't alter that. The only thing the contracts can be changed would be numbers. I tell people all the time that if you want to play attorney and you want to alter the special provisions, send it to me, and I'll just proof it over, and I'll send back an email saying, hey, looks great. Then it's got my stamp on it. Because what happens is not only is a realtor committing the unauthorized practice of law, but a lot of times these special provisions can end up costing their client a lot of trouble. We had an example on Friday, which closed on Friday, which is kind of a segue back to our segment on why not to do leasebacks.
Yeah.
So on the 29th, this file closed. They came in and brought back a lease back for the seller to basically stay on for one extra day. So the lease was going to be till 7:30. The document was signed. Everything was done. The funding happened on that day. Well, Monday morning, I get an email stating that, hey, the house has been trashed over the weekend. And they had 3 pictures. One of the pictures showed a bong in there, that something you smoke out of. Another picture had a double-headed dildo on there.
That's
I don't know if I can say
party.
say that on air, but
It's too late now.
so maybe we should have a 3-second little pause on here. Right?
We're gonna have to edit that part.
I don't have a drop button on this board, guys.
You got to warn us.
So getting back, and then of course, they were supposed to they were thinking that we held $1,500 with a deposit, which we did not do. Now, the contract itself under the leaseback, it stated the landlord is to transfer $1,500. Landlord is to pay X amount, $1,500 to tenant. Well, the special provisions that were written up for the contract, they basically said the very final line, title company to hold deposit. So the whole contract stated landlord was to pay the tenant directly, but in the very little small section special provisions that nobody saw. Nobody pointed out at closing. We didn't see it. So what happened was the buyer had his house trashed by the seller, and there was no money to compensate for him. So now they're stuck in a bad situation because, no one's left holding the bag, and so they're contacting the broker, the listing agent for the seller, and saying, hey, you should have gotten a check. You should have your clients given a check. And, of course, he's turning around, going back to them saying, well, you should have gotten a check. And it's like, well, the title company now is liable, which obviously per the contract, landlord was to pay seller, and under the new TRID rules, you can't change the HUD on the day of closing, not with conventional financing. That's under law. So even had we known to collect $1,500, we wouldn't have known. We couldn't have collected it because we couldn't have changed settlement statement.
Yeah. And it's funny because in those scenarios, everyone just points a finger at each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what's doing right now.
Yeah. It's your fault. No, it's his fault. No, it's your fault.
And I just see that all the time where people go in and write in the special provisions. And I guess it almost would apply the same when you're creating an amendment.
That's right.
An amendment is still part of a legal document. And so by the agent doing it, I guess you're kind of playing lawyer.
And they don't understand the legal, well, they don't have the education to credentials is what I should say, not the education, the credentials to understand the legal implications of what you do to where, I mean, this situation could have been avoided because they could have just delayed. They could have said, hey, move out of the house today, or if you're going to stay in there, we're going to make sure to hold the deposit.
Yeah.
That wasn't done because, quite frankly, nobody's going to catch the little section on special provisions at the very end, especially not when it's presented on the last day of the month, when in a crowded room.
Yeah, yeah. And what happens to the realtors who go out there, play attorney, they write in these special provisions, something goes wrong, and now it's the realtor's fault for writing that special provision?
I hope they have a good E&O policy because they're about to be sued, and not only that, they will be reported to the Texas Bar. And Texas Bar they're very vigilant on unauthorized practice of law because people who hold themselves out to be attorneys, makes attorneys, if it's possible, to make them look any worse. It does.
Well, I think this is really important, though, because a lot of realtors don't realize that what they're doing is playing attorney.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't see it that way. They're like, oh, this is a real estate contract. I'm a real estate a real estate agent, real estate professional. And so I'm just going to write in here the things that we spoke about in the special provisions, or I'm going to create an amendment, not realizing that is playing attorney. You're doing a legal document.
Absolutely. So to avoid that scenario, what are two things that realtors can do to not get into a liability position?
The first thing is don't do it.
Okay.
Obviously, that's the
step
easiest
number
thing.
one.
That's
Yeah.
step number one. And if you do it, know an attorney.
Well,
if you don't know a real estate attorney, I'm always available.
That's the thing, is sometimes it's completely necessary. Sometimes you can't avoid it. Sometimes you have to write something in to make the deal work.
Make them write it.
Okay.
Make them write it. So if your client says, hey, you want to do special provisions, write this up yourself.
Yep.
That way, they're not representing them, they're representing themselves.
That's true. That's a very good way to put it. Of course, obviously, share it with an attorney would be the other thing.
Absolutely.
You can always call the legal hotline, the Trek legal hotline. They can always advise you on that as well. There's all sorts of ways for you to get resources. Guys, our legal segment is over. I can't believe how fast this is going. We're going to be right back. We'll finish off our conversation, and we have some other events to share with you. Be back with you shortly.
There you go.
The Realty Ruckus is going to be broadcasting live August 9th at White Picket Realty's Happy Hour. This is an event for you guys to RSVP for and really get ready to ramp up your business. David, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
That's right, Alan. Come grab a cold one and beat the heat with Team WPR. We'll have over 200 plus real estate industry professionals attending. That's private money lenders, wholesalers, realtors, you name it. We'll be at the St. Arnold Brewery on August 9th from 6 to 9 p.m. You can RSVP at whitepickethappyhour.eventbrite.com. Again, that RSVP link is whitepickethappyhour.eventbrite.com. Hey everyone, this is David over at White Picket Realty, and I wanted to tell you about my friends over at Plans Express who can save you the headache of running your own permits. These guys are committed to offering a one-stop solution for all your plan and permit needs. They're proudly serving their friends and neighbors in the Houston surrounding areas, and they offer great service and an exceptional value. With dedicated professionals ready to serve, contact them today at 832-675-6217.
Hey realtors, I have a challenge for you. Walk into your broker's office and ask him to show you how to do a net listing, a wholesale investment transaction, or a subject to. I'm Alan Hernandez, broker of White Picket Realty, and my team and I have been doing these type of transactions for years. We can show you how to do the same and turn small deals into big checks. If you're interested in learning more, please contact join at teamwpr.com. JOIN at teamwpr.com.
Hey Houston investors, do you have a couple deals under your belt, but now you're looking to scale in a more structured way? If so, then the House Flipping Network provides guidance to those looking to grow their real estate business. It's also a great way to mastermind with our experts and groups of like-minded investors just like yourself. If you're interested in more information, reach out to me, David at houseflippingnetwork.com. That's David at houseflippingnetwork.com.
And we are back on the Realty Ruckus. We want to finish our legal segment with Ashley Patton, and then we want to jump into some events for you guys and what to do over the weekend. I know that there's some really cool things happening in Houston this weekend.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, I mean, just to sum up what we were talking about, it's the unauthorized practice of law by real estate agents and why you, as a real estate agent, should not be writing any kind of items into special provisions. And, we gave them some options on what things they can do. And Ashley, you said you're available to look through some of those. Obviously, you want people to send you some of that business too if they're going to be asking you for reviews of their contracts. That only makes sense. But the important thing is don't go out there and just make special provisions up.
Right.
Because you're getting yourself into trouble. And you said something not too long ago. You said every good deed goes.
No good deed
no
goes
good
unpunished.
deed goes
No
unpunished.
good deed goes unpunished.
And I think that's what happens.
Right.
Man.
You try to help your client out. You try to make things easy, and then you end up in a situation where something goes bad. I mean, it's too easy to get sued these days.
Yeah.
Don't try to play something that you're not, and add yourself another avenue to be sued on.
Of liability, yeah.
Right.
So let's make sure we write that in the pit back there. No good deed goes unpunished. Don't go out there and start writing items into special provisions, guys. That's going to help you keep from getting sued and keep your broker happy because at the end of the day, no fee or whatnot, but the reason behind that is because if they get sued, the brokerage gets sued. It's not the agent that necessarily takes a hit. It's the entire brokerage.
Sometimes being an agent is bliss because you don't have to worry about the headaches because when your job's done, when your commission gets paid off, guess what? You're paid.
Yeah.
Usually what happens is if you get sued, you might get fired.
Yeah.
You find another job. But guess what? Your brokerage is caught picking up the pieces.
Yep, and that's so true. Every once in a while I'll get a nasty phone call, and it's me who has to go out there and fix the things and make sure things are done right. And the agents, like you said, some of them just they've moved on.
Yeah, they're like, hey, somebody else has offered me something over here, so and it's. Lawsuits are a lot of bad energy that goes out. There's a lot of bad things that come with a lawsuit. Nothing ever good comes with a lawsuit. A bad settlement is always better than a great lawsuit.
Yeah.
Now a great lawsuit, you always hear about the McDonald's incident where you win $8 million or all this other stuff. That's a pie in the sky. That's like winning the lottery.
Yeah, that's why you hear about it,
right?
Because it's such a rare occurrence.
That's exactly right. For the most part, you end up maybe breaking even, and you spent $40,000 in legal fees to break even.
Yeah.
Not to mention the amount of time that you lose on top of all that. So really, you're negative.
Right.
Yeah. I think we've learned that the hard way. We went through a little spree where we were real diligent about following up with people who had wronged us, and at the end of the day, we were like, "What's the point?
What's the
you know
point?
What I mean? Like, what's the point just to spend so much time doing that
Right.
if it's not paying you out?
Yeah. Check your principals at the door. Put them in the coat rocket and move on.
Yeah. Definitely. So we have some cool events to share with you guys coming up this weekend. Of course, you guys know it's Friday, and there's
a big one tonight. Guns N' Roses.
I'm going.
Yeah.
And Skrillex.
You're going to be there?
Yeah.
Are you going?
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
One of our agents is going
Guns
too.
N' Roses and Skrillex. I mean, that's kind of an awkward pair.
Very awkward.
We were just talking about that. I said, who in the world put those two together? Like, Skrillex is good on his own.
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses good on their own.
Yeah. But
Two different crowds.
Right.
And it's two different crowds. That was my
Yeah.
thinking.
You've got like this EDM, bass, electronica crowd.
Dubstep or whatever.
Yeah, dubstep.
Yeah.
And then you have like 1980s hard rock people.
Yeah.
I don't see how that's going to play out.
I gotta tell you, if you're in your 30s, you listen to both of those bands. Kind of like me, you know what I mean? Like
I don't listen to Skrillex.
I know both of them.
I like Skrillex.
I know
I'll
both of
admit
them,
it.
and every once in a while I turn up the little in my car, So
Maybe Axel should be doing some more oomph oomph.
I did hear the T-shirts are going to be going. The Guns N' Roses T-shirts are going to be going for a cool $50.
wow, there you go.
Yeah, that's the T-shirts.
Well, I mean-
that I think they have like jackets and stuff. Kind of reminiscent of the Guns N' Roses back in the day, and those are going for like 400 plus, I think is what I heard.
eBay.com.
Are you serious?
Well, no, they're milking the hell out of this thing. I mean, they're doing it at the Energy Stadium,
Right.
Yeah.
which holds what, like 66,000.
They're going to have, I think,
70,000?
55,000
Yeah.
in attendance, and yeah, 55,000 I think is what I heard. But it was
Man,
65.
because I thought it was a Toyota Center at first, and I was like, oh yeah, I like Toyota
Yeah.
Center. Even no matter where you're at in there, you
Yeah.
get a pretty good view.
Oh, and they're playing for 2.5 hours. That's where my train of thought was going.
They're
Yeah.
playing 2.5
Whoa,
hours?
I didn't
2.5
know
hours.
that.
I know
Man,
that
that's
either.
awesome.
So you guys are going to be
I
rocking.
know he's selling us on it.
Yeah, I know.
I'm thinking of getting a ticket now.
I
Good
may,
luck.
I may have to go scalp some tickets for
I know,
that
right?
later.
Well, if you can't make it to the Guns N' Roses show, or maybe you just want to skip out on Skrillex, you can go check out the Astros. They're taking on the Rangers tonight at Minute Maid Park, and they're going to have a weekend series.
What is it? What's their record right now? How are the Astros doing? I don't really keep up with
Well,
baseball.
listen,
either.
I don't keep up with baseball either, but I know recently something about this Astros girl. Some, I guess, scantily
I've
clad
heard of this Astros
woman
girl.
was
Yes.
in the diamond section, and I think they won that night, but ever since she came out, they've been losing.
Really?
And they're starting to say she was too much of a distraction.
I love how baseball has to do everything with luck. Like everything with winning or losing in baseball has something to do with something else. It's
Yeah,
hilarious.
I know very few people actually go to a baseball game to watch the game.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone else I know is like, I'm gonna go out there, drink a couple beers, hang
Yeah.
out with some buds.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$9 beers. You know me.
I don't know anything.
Yeah, $9 beers.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right, is there any other cool events coming up?
Yeah, so on Saturday, the Astros and the Rangers kick off their series again, and we'll have the Dixie Chicks at Woodlands Pavilion for those who might be interested in that. Not my cup of tea, but hey, you never know. High caliber gun and knife show at NRG.
Ooh,
That sounds
nice.
kind of
Oh,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
sounds cool.
Oh, and if you're in real estate, our friend Curtis Warden is going to be hosting 100K flips. He's going to be teaching you
Yeah. Is that
guys
Saturday? I think it's a weekend.
It's Saturday and
but-
Sunday.
Saturday and Sunday. He's going to be teaching you guys about flipping houses and making $100,000 paychecks on them. So he's a good friend of ours. He's going to actually be helping us or hosting one of the shows upcoming with us in our happy hour. And then you guys are sponsoring that
We are.
event as
We are.
well.
We're gold sponsor, and I'll be there Saturday. No, actually, I'll be there Sunday at 1 o'clock teaching the class. So
Very cool.
Awesome.
Very,
Very
cool.
cool.
So if you're in real estate, you want to learn about flipping houses, making $100,000 paychecks, that's a great event to go to. Anything else we have coming up?
Yeah, so finishing out the weekend, Sunday, Sublime with Rome and 311 at Woodlands Pavilion. That sounds pretty
That
awesome.
sounds really cool.
That's
Yeah.
a good. See, they did a good lineup there.
Yeah.
Sublime with Room and 311. Both of them kind of like
It's
that
the same crowd.
ska-ish
Yeah.
bands. Yeah.
That's a good matchup. And then, of course, the big one, guys, Tuesday, August 9th, with a White Picket Happy Hour.
I'll be there.
That's the big one right
That
there.
is the big one.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys go on to Eventbrite, get your tickets for our happy hour coming up. That's next Tuesday.
Yeah, and it's whitepickethappyhour.eventbrite.com. Whitepickethappyhour.eventbrite.com. You can also find the event on Facebook.
I got an email from someone that said, "Is this event only for investors?" So I wanted
No.
to just make sure that this was clear. Is it only for investors? Is that the only people
it's
that we want there?
For realtors, investors, lenders. I see we had quite a few attorneys.
Hey, believe it or
signed
not,
up, so-
our attorney ratio of
I
people
don't-
signing
We
up
might have to thank Ashley for that one.
skyrocketed. Skyrocketed. So we have a lot of attorneys showing up this time. We want everyone to come out to this event, not just for the free food and drinks, but because we want to help your business grow. We want to get some awesome people like Ashley in front of you who can help you with your closings, as well as several other investors, several other vendors who are sponsoring the night. And not to mention phenomenal networking.
Yeah, come
It's
with
a
your business
gr-
cards ready,
Yeah.
guys.
I mean, it's about going out there and meeting people and seeing how other folks can help you grow as well. With that said, that summarizes our show for the day.
Yeah, remember that on Tuesday we won't be broadcasting during our regular time. We'll be broadcasting during the happy hour.
That's right. And don't forget that the happy hour is at 5 p.m.
6.
Yeah.
6
to
p.m.
9.
6 p.m.
6 to 9 p.m. So we'll be broadcasting out of there, out of the happy hour. Come out, check us out. We're going to be taking pictures with everyone. We have a photo booth coming out. It's going to be a fun event. We're actually really excited.
Yeah,
Really
you'll
looking
get
forward
to,
it.
people get to rock the mic with you.
Yeah, if you want to be on Realty Ruckus, next Tuesday is your chance. All right? If you want to get on the show, take a picture,
Get
come
your
on
ruckus
out.
on with
Get
us.
your ruckus on. That's what we want to do. All right? You guys have a great weekend. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
This is has been the Realty Ruckus. Make sure and join us every Tuesday and Friday for new episodes. Find us on YouTube and Facebook for replays of previous episodes. And as always, keep elevating yourself and keep up your ruckus. Thanks for listening. Realty Ruckus has been brought to you by Smart Pig Media Productions.